Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everyone. Bonjour à tous. As mentioned, my name is Brad Sutherland, and I'm privileged to be here today in my role as the Head of Business Development at Air Canada. It's a pleasure to help guide this conversation on how Canada and Asia can build deeper, more dynamic innovation networks. At Air Canada, we think a lot about connectivity, not just of flights, but a flow of people, ideas, talent, and opportunity. Every new route that we open creates fresh economic corridors for Canadians. Every partnership that we build with other airlines or logistic players expands the innovation ecosystem that Canadian businesses and institutions can tap into. Air Canada is a long-standing partner of the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada, and we're deeply committed to growing connectivity to this ever-growing region. In the post-pandemic era, we have invested heavily here. From our Pacific hub in Vancouver, we connect passengers from across the US and Canada to year-round destinations including Hong Kong, Manila, Singapore, and Bangkok as the only North American flight between North America and Bangkok. But we're here today in Singapore, one of the world's most connected innovation hubs, alongside leaders from university and venture capital, who are building the bridges that transform collaboration into economic growth. So today's conversation is about how we scale that. So I'm going to turn it over to each of our panelists to allow them to introduce themselves, give you a bit of insight into their roles. So first, I'm going to welcome Bill Flanagan, President and Vice Chancellor of University of Alberta. Bill.
Great. Well, thank you, Bradley, and I'm really delighted to be here today on behalf of the University of Alberta. I thought in my introductory remarks, I'd just talk a little bit about the University of Alberta's engagement with China, Japan, India, and Singapore. Just a little bit about an engagement in the region that is of long-standing importance to the University of Alberta. I thought I'd just begin talking about our art collection, and you might wonder why I'm talking about an art collection, but this is that was the seed that gave rise to the China Institute at the University of Alberta. Sandy and Cecile McTaggart, very generous donors to the University of Alberta. Sandy was a very successful land developer in Edmonton and in Alberta. And in the 1960s, Sandy started traveling to China when China was very isolated and very poor. And Sandy had great insight. He was a very savvy businessman, and he saw great opportunity in China. And when he went to China, he said, China was once a great nation, and it will be a great nation again. And this spurred his great interest in, longstanding throughout his life, his interest in China. And he and his wife started to collect what became the foremost private collection of East Asian art in the world. He's traveling to London and Paris and auctions in New York, collecting a simply extraordinary collection that came to be known as the McTaggart Collection. And Sandy and Cecile very generously gave this collection to the University of Alberta about 20 years ago. And among the collection includes several of the Southern inspection scrolls. And for those of you familiar with East Asian art, you will know that the Emperor of China would occasionally do tours of the southern provinces in China. And he would commission one of the greatest artists of the period to create a scroll. These scrolls are something like 80 feet in length. They're dramatic, beautiful works of art that would describe and depict the emperor's tour through the southern provinces, thus known as the Southern Inspection Tour. Most of these scrolls are currently in the Imperial Palace Museum in Beijing. We have 3 of these scrolls at the University of Alberta as part of our McTaggart collection. Now, Sandy was very clever. When he gave the collection to the University of Alberta, he also convinced the government of Alberta to match the value of the collection and create an endowment to create our China Institute. And we can move to the next slide. And the China Institute now has an endowment of over $40 million from Sandy's generosity in giving us the McTaggart collection. And the China Institute is the largest independent hub for the study and understanding of China in Canada. And Philippe Renaud, you'll all be known to him. Philippe is here, the director of our China Institute. And the China Institute has become a very important way for the University of Alberta to engage deeply and very meaningfully with China. And it also is home for Track 2 diplomacy and it convenes high-level conversations between Canada and China. And just moving on to Japan, we're also very proud to be home to the Prince Takemoto Japan Center. Again, named about 20 years ago in honor of Prince Takemoto. Prince Takemoto studied in Canada as a young man. He was always very committed to scholarship and the exchange of peoples between Canada and Japan. And we were honored to name this Japan Center in his honor 20 years ago. He sadly passed away at a very young age. But his widow, Princess Takemoto, a very prominent member of the Japanese imperial family, remains very engaged in supporting the Prince Takemoto Japan Center at the University of Alberta. So this has been a very important way in which we engage with the study and understanding of Japan. And most recently, we've launched a strategic research partnership with Tohoku University, which is the first university designated in Japan as a university for international research excellence. And this comes with a simply extraordinary investment by the Japanese government. And finally, in India, I was just on the university's Canada tour. We're very engaged in a number of the elite IIT institutions in India, also exploring dual degree programs. And here in Singapore, we're very proud of the partnership that we've developed with Nanyang Technological University. And Luis, I don't know if you know, but your second president is a graduate of the University of Alberta. Dr. Su, who was a Colombo scholar, came to the University of Alberta as a young student, did his undergraduate degree at the U of A. And so we have a long-standing connection to NTU. NTU is very interested in energy and energy transition. This is an area where the University of Alberta has achieved global prominence. So we're very pleased to launch a research partnership with NTU that is going to, that we're both funding with seed funding to bring our researchers together to advance the work that we're doing in energy transition. So with that, I will turn it over to the next speaker. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to welcome Louis Phee, Vice President and Innovation and Entrepreneurship from NTU, based here in Singapore. Louis.
Thank you, Brad. And Bill, thanks for training our past president. So as VP of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at NTU Singapore, my job is really to translate NTU's research outcome into investable startups with impactful licensing opportunities. Prior to this, I was the Dean of Engineering for 6 years. So a little bit about NTU. NTU has its humble beginnings as an institute. So in the 80s, we were actually known as Nanyang Technological Institute. We did not award our own degrees. So the main objective of the institute was really to train engineers for the manufacturing sector in Singapore, which was booming during the 80s and the 90s. Yeah, so it was only in 1991 that it was transformed to a full-fledged university, NTU. So we are just 35 years old. And we've only decided to be research intensive just about 18 years ago with strengths in engineering, AI, robotics, sustainability, health, and advanced manufacturing. In the past 20 years, we've added the College of Science, Business School, the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and the Medical School. So we are now a comprehensive university. But technology remains our middle name, right? So our medical students are very comfortable with technology. Our business school professors, they tell me that they pride themselves as a business school in a technological university. For a young university, I think we're doing very well in the global university rankings. People always ask me, how did NTU pull off such a meteoric ascent in these rankings? So I just tell them there's a lot of blood and sweat that people don't see. Yeah. So let's talk about international collaboration. Singapore, as you know, is an island, but certainly it cannot operate as one in the traditional sense of the word. Connectivity is key, and collaboration, international collaboration, is central to NTU's research and innovation strategy. Our professors come from all over the world. I am born and bred here. I'm Singaporean, and I'm a minority in my own university. But I think we strive and we excel in this melting pot of diversity. Many of our collaborations are really ground up. It's from the already established personal relationships between our professors, our students, with their previous universities and also other industry partners. But ultimately, I think our top priority is really to draw the best talent, not only into NTU, but for Singapore. As you know, as a country with no natural resources, human capital is the only thing that we have. So we cannot settle for anything less than the best that we can get. Types of collaboration that NTU would be interested would circle around talent development, talent mobility programs. We have joint programs with other universities. In Singapore, we have a CREATE program, which will invite top universities to set up campus in Singapore, which is supported by the Singapore government. I would say that NTU Singapore does exceptionally well in our collaboration with the industry. We have quite a few what we call corporate labs, which are a much larger scale than the normal joint labs that universities have with the industry partners. So we have corporate labs with the likes of Rolls-Royce, ExxonMobil, Hewlett-Packard, Continental, Schaeffler, and Alibaba. Right? So the government comes in to match the investment from the company. So there's a multiplication effect of the company's research dollar. So a typical corp lab would be in the region of $70 to $80 million each. So we've done this for many years. We've been very successful, and it doesn't just stop with the usual 5 year. We always go into the second and the third phase. And so with that, I think that I'm very excited about this collaboration with University of Alberta in the area of energy transition, and hopefully that would result in economic growth for both countries.
Louis, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to a different face, a face familiar to many Canadians in the room and perhaps Singaporeans. Arlene Dickinson, one of Canada's most recognized business leaders and investors. Many of you will know her from her role on Dragon's Den, but Arlene is also the founder and CEO of District Ventures. So Arlene, tell us a bit about District and we'll go from there.
Thank you. First of all, I have to say I grew up in a home that was full of educators. My father started off teaching electronics at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, NAIT initially, then SAIT, and then went on to become a University of Alberta graduate and got his PhD in education from your school. And I was always taught the importance of education. Unfortunately for me, I was at the age of 19, found myself, not unfortunately because I had children as a result of this, but I got married because who doesn't know everything there is to know about life at 19? I thought I did, and got married and had children, and I never got to go to school. I now have 5 honorary doctorate degrees, which my father, I'm sure, would be rolling in his grave had he known that I didn't get them and earn them the hard way. But I have a great deal of respect for educators and for the educational institutions and what they deliver in terms of research and knowledge and understanding to our collective understanding of what we can do in the world and how we can improve through developing our minds and our talent and taking that out into the world. So it's an honor to share the stage with such esteemed panelists, but I'd like to talk to you as an entrepreneur. I started my career about 40 years ago in the marketing and strategy space. So I did business strategy and marketing. I grew that company, ended up doing a consolidation play, and then raised about $250 million and started a fund in the food and health space. I started that fund in the CPG space because I saw the gap between innovation and our commodities and commercialization, and the need to be able to take what we produce in Canada at a commodity and ingredient level and actually get it into the marketplace and get credit for all of the last mile of value that is created when you actually do commercialize. This has been an interesting journey. Through this, I have been able to work with hundreds of companies across our nation who are either at the earlier stage or late or middle stage of growth. I've seen the gap in not just the financing of their growth, but the gap in understanding of the value that they can add to our economy through export and through building opportunity. I also see the opportunity and what's happening in the education space in terms of all of the knowledge that's trapped there and is built there, but is not yet making its way into working with entrepreneurs into a place that we can actually take that knowledge and expand it into commercialization. So I see real opportunity. as an entrepreneur, I can't help but think about what we can do as a nation to work more effectively with nations like Singapore and to work with the Asian Pacific marketplaces and bring our knowledge and experience and our entrepreneurial innovation to play. So I've been spending my career working with entrepreneurs as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a fundraiser, and as somebody who has perhaps not a lot of book knowledge, but a lot of street knowledge. I think that street knowledge is sometimes underestimated and underplayed in terms of the importance it brings to how we can actually get things moving, because sometimes things can get stuck when we're thinking too much about, kind of what we're overanalyzing. But from my perspective, entrepreneurs play a very important role. So for me, working with entrepreneurs has been a life's journey. At the later stage of my life, we also have an accelerator that has helped about 300 companies that are very early stage and startup to be able to build their businesses and to scale them. Many of these companies have gone on to build very successful companies in Canada. We did a economic impact study about 4 years ago, and we were close to $2 billion in economic impact coming out of that accelerator program and what my fund is doing in terms of investing in the food and health CPG space. So I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about helping entrepreneurs. I'm very passionate about education, having grown up surrounded by educators and understanding the importance of it. And I will just add that my father went on to become an entrepreneur himself and created the first self-based software program for self-based learning. This was at a time when mainframe computers were was a bad bet. He didn't know about PC at the time, but I do understand that there is a real opportunity between research and innovation.
Awesome, thanks Arlene. Maybe I'll throw a question to all of you and kind of answer it based upon kind of your position in the ecosystem. So we'll start with a fun question. What's something that excites you right now on the landscape, especially in the Canada-Asia corridor? What's something that is working and you think is doing well? Maybe we'll starting down here and we'll move along.
Yeah, well, we're very engaged in energy transition research at the University of Alberta. One of those areas includes hydrogen, and we're doing some really remarkable work around the production, storage, transportation, and utilization of hydrogen. We've got a group of researchers, over 60 researchers, spanning a number of disciplines. So really positioning the University of Alberta as a global leader in hydrogen. And I know hydrogen is also a major area of interest here in Singapore. And one thing I just could share with you of the many research happening at the University of Alberta, we have recently discovered a catalyst of common earth materials available around the world when applied to water of any quality, including seawater, at room temperature, will remove the oxygen from the water and release hydrogen. And this has created the possibility to produce hydrogen on demand where needed, wherever you have a supply of water and a supply of the catalyst. This is really an extraordinary development at the University of Alberta. We're just, this is not even well publicized yet. You'll be hearing more about this as we unroll it. But that just gives you a flavor of the research happening at the University of Alberta and why we're so pleased to partner with NTU on that research, recognizing that energy transition, and as you all know, Singapore, unlike Canada, is not blessed with natural resources. Singapore's great strength, and it's a remarkable one, is human capital. And so Singapore is very focused on energy security and energy supply. So we're really pleased to partner with NTU on this research. Thank you.
Okay, maybe I'll let Louis go next and kind of respond to that. And what excites you on this corridor?
Yeah, totally agree with Bill. It's really exciting. But for me, I guess, well, Singapore government invests tremendously into research, innovation, and enterprise. In fact, it goes by 5-year tranches. So the figure for the next 5 years has just been announced. It's to the tune of $37 billion, Singapore dollars. That is a lot in per capita terms. Well, the results, as we have seen from the past 5 years, top-notch research output, and of course, top-ranking universities like NUS and NTU. But the ROI for this $37 billion investment is still primarily economic growth for the country, which is rather challenging for us. I mean, Singapore, we have a very small market. So we need to get out there. And of course, Canada, it's a huge addressable market. There's great research culture. There's a lot of great IPs out there. So I'm excited to collaborate, to look at each other's IP portfolio. How can we combine IP? How can we do research together to address the industry needs? So the goal is really to work together using this Canada-Asia corridor to translate more of such great IPs and research outputs into new products and services.
Awesome, thank you. And Arlene, from your perspective, more on the venture capital, the industry side, what excites you about the Canada-Asia corridor right now?
I think it's taking all of the great knowledge and research that is being done and all of the things that you are both talking about and helping to ensure that it actually does get into the marketplace in a meaningful way. I get very excited. I mean, I specifically am focused on food security and what's happening in the globe as it relates to food security. And so I think about the opportunity to trade what Canada has, which is a vast amount of raw goods, commodities, ingredients, and energy, and all sorts of knowledge, and help turn that into products that the world can consume. So that's very exciting to me. I see the opportunity. We see in Singapore that 90% of the food that is consumed here is imported. And so there is a real need here, and Canada can help fulfill that need. And I think what has to happen is us doing a better job of communicating in a language that makes common sense to each other. So it is a real trade relationship. It is figuring out what each other needs and making sure that we're giving it to each other in a way that makes sense.
I love it. Bill, maybe we'll talk, I know you've both mentioned the partnership between the two institutions, but maybe we'll get you to talk a bit more about that. What were you trying to solve when you partnered with NTU? I mean, you've mentioned rich human capital here in Singapore. What do you think was intended to bring the two institutions together? What were you trying to solve that you couldn't probably do alone, but again, partnering with an organization like NTU?
Yeah, first I wanted to say, and you touched a bit on this, Louis, it's absolutely extraordinary what Singapore has been able to do in developing the research profile of NTU and NUS. In a matter of 20 years, these now rank among the top universities in the world. And I have to tell you, Louis, whenever I'm talking to government officials in Canada, I always point to Singapore as an example of what investment in research and human capital, the impact that it can have on a country and on an economy. And as I mentioned earlier, this is really the major resource of Singapore, is its peoples. And the government of Singapore understands this. And of course, this is music to the ears of any university president, because they understand that investing in their universities and in investing in their young people and developing education opportunities and investing in research will be the future of Singapore. And they've done it to extraordinary success. So this is why we're so pleased to partner with both NUS and NTU here in Singapore, recognizing that research strength. And as I mentioned earlier, energy is a major focus of what we do at U of A and a major focus of interest here in Singapore. And artificial intelligence would be the other area where we have significant strength, home to Richard Sutton, recently awarded the Turing Award. And in computer science, we've really been able to build an extraordinary group of researchers around AI excellence. So this is another area where we see great potential for collaboration here in Singapore. And I have to say that Singapore is an inspiration to universities around the world of what you could achieve when you have a government that is prepared to invest and understands the value of research and the value of its human capital.
I love it. Louis, kind of similar question to you. What have you learned from working with University of Alberta and working with other institutions? Is this something you recommend to other institutions that you're speaking to globally and building out partnerships?
Yeah, so I think that collaborations with other institutes, it's really important to any university. So here we have embarked on this collaboration, and we'll see what happens. But I think what we have learned from past experience working with other universities, as well as the industry partners, is trust. And that takes time. When NTU works with another university, it's not always just about NTU working with University A, but more importantly is Professor X from NTU having a good working relationship with Professor Y from the other university or a CTO from a particular industry partners. And in NTU, we're talking about long-term relationship. And as I mentioned earlier, most of our collaborations, it start off top-down, but it doesn't end with just, the agreed 3 years or 5 years. There's always part 2 and part 3. A very good example that I can give is our relationship with Chancellor, right? It started off, I think about 9 years ago, as a small joint lab between NTU and Chancellor, just a few professors and a few students with investment to the tune of maybe 2 or 3 million. It's a small project. But as time goes by, we gained each other's trust. On NTU part, we delivered what we promised on time. And then the founder of Chancellor was very interested in our progress, and he came over to visit. We hosted him, and there was a good rapport. And slowly, there was more investment from the company, and I'm glad to say that now it has, been elevated to a corporate lab worth tens of millions of dollars. So that was a good lesson for us, and I definitely want our relationship with Alberta to go in the direction as well.
Maybe we'll bring Arlene into the conversation here and kind of get your insight on what signals really tell you that a university partnership is actually producing commercially relevant innovation, or maybe what isn't. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I do think that there needs to be better collaboration between entrepreneurs and universities, in particular with your R&D arms. I think there's so much research that's being done, so much innovation that's happening, but again, it's not making it to the entrepreneurs. You just cited an example of one where you found a company that has now done tens of millions of dollars of revenue. Imagine if we could take all of the research that you have created and all of the innovation that's there and marry it more effectively with entrepreneurs. This is something that some nations do very, very well. I have visited facilities here in Singapore where you're seeing universities and innovation labs and entrepreneurs working very effectively together. It requires a shared common language and a shared purpose, which says that it's got to take the deep understanding of what's being worked on and put it into the market in a way that actually is then useful to the market. And I think that entrepreneurs do not necessarily understand the way universities operate or think, and I would say the same is true for universities not understanding the way entrepreneurs think and operate, and so figuring out a way to bridge that gap will be very helpful to actually making something impactful in the marketplace and the globe happen. So there's so much great knowledge that's being trapped, I think, in the universities that needs to be married to entrepreneurs to bring it to market.
Love it, Bill. Maybe I'll let you respond to that. What are your thoughts on that? Is that your experience, and do you think that's unique to Canada, or is that kind of a global issue?
Certainly there's more that we can do, although I did want to mention at the University of Alberta, we've recently created a new Vice President portfolio of International Innovation and Enterprise. And he's here today, Dave Bressler. And this is basically a portfolio about business development. So Arlene, I think this will be dear to your heart. This is about engaging our researchers with investors to commercialize research. And I know this is something NTU is also outstanding at. And the other thing that we've done at the University of Alberta is created our own innovation fund, where we're taking an equity position in innovations coming out of the University of Alberta. The goal being to send the message to our researchers. And again, in the past, commercialization of research was sometimes regarded as inconsistent with your obligations to the university. You should be getting grants and publications, and commercialization was almost a dirty word. We need to change that, and we are changing that in universities. We want commercialization of research to be considered part of the success of an academic's career, if that is where their research takes them and if there's that potential. So with our innovation fund, we're not only saying we celebrate this and we value this, we as a university will take an equity position in these innovations coming out of the University of Alberta, and then invite and attract other investors to likewise take a position. And so we're investing, obviously, at very early stages, very high risk, but who knows better than the University of Alberta what the caliber of the innovations that are coming out. The one that I just mentioned on hydrogen is a good example. So this is one way in which we're taking our commitment to commercialization and engagement with investors in industry very seriously, and of course, governments want to see this as well. I know the government of Singapore wants to see this. I can tell you the government of Alberta and the government of Canada are likewise very keen to say, what is the outcome of all of this research expense that we're expending on universities? What is the outcome in terms of commercialization and economic impact? So this is a major area of focus. More to come, but I think it's important to recognize that universities really are moving quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I would really encourage you to make sure that you have an entrepreneur at the table as you're thinking about the constructs of that, so that you are hearing the same language, because I do think that's a big gap between the two.
Yeah, I can tell you our innovation fund is a board of directors of only entrepreneurs. We set up a separate for-profit entity wholly owned by the university, but when we set it up, I thought, I'm not going to have the Dean of Science making these calls. We need entrepreneurs assessing the commercial potential of these innovations and deciding whether or not to invest and advise the university accordingly. So we did that quite deliberately, recognizing that that's not a historic strength of a university. We have to engage with the business community and entrepreneurs who are best able to assess the potential commercial application of innovations coming out of U of A.
So incidentally, NTU has also come up with our own internal fund where we invest in our best startups and take equity. So I think this is a direction that many universities are heading towards.
Maybe we're coming up a bit close to time, so I want to kind of switch gears a bit and ask Arlene a question. You mentioned all the entrepreneurs that you support and the organizations and district ventures. There's probably a common thought that Canadian entrepreneurs don't often look outside of our own borders. We're very focused on building within Canada. We're here in Singapore. You've been across Asia on this trip. What is one thing you would kind of tell Canadian entrepreneurs about the importance of looking to markets such as Singapore, Southeast Asia for growing? And when is that important to do? Is that a step one, or where should they consider that kind of in their entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I mean, clearly it's dependent on the size and stage of the company, but if the company is able to scale and has a good footing inside of it in terms of its structure and its financing, then I think coming to markets like this is critical. It's not even a nice to have, it is a have to do. We have been complacent. We have looked too much to our neighbor to the south. We have relied heavily on a country of 350 million people when there's billions of people in Asia that would love to have our products and our goods here. So I think Canadian entrepreneurs need to be much more aggressive. We need to be much more supportive of their efforts. That's why events like this, where there's actually discussion happening and deals are being made and people can see that it is feasible, and take that back to Canada and help others to understand that they can make this work. So I'm I'm pushing very hard, almost to the point I'm sure I'm getting obnoxious in Canada about saying this over and over and over again. But you cannot rely on our neighbor to the south. That relationship has gone and changed. And yes, we will still continue to trade with the U.S., but we have to think beyond that. And as Canadians, we have what the world needs, and we need to be able to deliver that.
Awesome. I want to give it an opportunity to the audience to ask any questions for our panelists. So I know Jordan has the microphone and is running around, so please raise your hand if you have a question for any one of our panelists.
Hi, my name's Julianne Biddle. I work for the Global Crop Diversity Trust, which is a trust that supports crop diversity being conserved and available for use worldwide. I have a question for Arlene. You've spoken a few times about knowledge being trapped in universities and how that's a barrier to gaining the most value out of investment in education and science. It really struck a chord with me. I've seen that in a bunch of different roles that I've been in. I had the privilege last year of talking to 70 decision makers across the Global South about what kind of evidence they need for decision making, and a lot of them expressed that the evidence is not packaged in the right format for them to engage with that evidence. It's too complex, and one of the decision makers actually said they never want to see a research publication ever again. And so I was wondering, if you could wave a magic wand over universities, and is there a way that you can see, or multiple ways that you can see, that really would make a big change in how that knowledge is actually extracted from universities and used by businesses? Thanks.
It's a big question. I would say that being more market focused is very important. So understanding what the market requires and how that marries to the research you're doing. So obviously the universities are going to do research far beyond, and they're thinking ahead. They're thinking you're doing research that is into the future, not just for the present. But we need to marry what the market is requiring and also the foresight of what the market's going to require in the future. And the language that is again, it's a very different language. They don't want to see a research paper because they don't understand how to translate down to how they're going to serve their customer or their end user. And so we have to think differently and speak differently and bring the language of the market to the universities and vice versa. So this is a collaboration that's not easy to do. But you know, I think when I think about the 300 companies we've helped in our accelerator, every one of them would think that going to a university would be too difficult, would be too complex. They wouldn't know how to enter into the university to ask for research assistance. And maybe they shouldn't be. Maybe this is too, you know, maybe this is a level that is not going to be good for the universities. But there should be some, you know, early stage research at the university level that marries early stage innovation and entrepreneurialism at the other side. And if those things work together, then you have a continuum that actually grows into large research projects, large opportunities. So I think it's a language issue, and I think it's a market understanding issue.
If I might just add, Louis and I were just chatting about this before the panel discussion, and we've had a similar journey at both our universities. Typically, innovation commercialization is lumped into research and under a VP research who may or may not have the skill set that is necessary to commercialize and engage with industry partners. So at both our universities, we've broken this out, in our case, a VP of International Innovation and Enterprise, and at NTU, I've broken it out to commercialization and industry engagement. I understand from research. So I think what you're seeing now is at the very highest levels of universities, a focus on commercialization and industry engagement that was not the case 10 years ago. Recognize and bringing a particular skill set to those roles that has that skill of engaging with industry, recognizing that we love our researchers and it will forever be our core strength, but it's not, but commercialization and engagement as industry is not necessarily their skill set. So we need to bring that skill set to make that translation possible, and so that people no longer look at universities and say, oh, you're impossible to deal with and you're too complex. Instead, they say, oh, there's the front door, and I know how to walk through that front door, and I will be immediately met with offer of partnership.
We're so good in Canada at overcomplicating things. You know, we have 10 provinces, 3 territories. We have so many, you know, different associations and groups that all don't speak to each other. We have, and I think, and to your point about export earlier, the challenge is that we struggle even interprovincially to do, you know, work collectively. We need to get to how we can work effectively across our nation and into other nations. And so opening the door, I love that. Like if the door is open and it feels that it's not, you know, complex, then you win.
Any other audience questions? I think we have a couple more moments. I think we have one right here.
Hi, so my name is Joseph Fung. I sit on the board of the Hong Kong University's commercialization board, Versatech. And one of the things that we've been struggling with is finding that right balance where we're building up funds to fund commercialization opportunities and to invest. But do we include more just within the Hong Kong University's ecosystem or the broader Hong Kong ecosystem, kind of finding that right balance where we want to be at the center of the stage? There's that legacy element, but there's that competitiveness against other universities. I wonder if you struggle with that, and how do you find that right balance within your universities?
Louis, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I think we are all, well, innovation and entrepreneurship is rather new to most universities. You have the likes of MIT, Stanford, who has been doing it for like 50 years. So, but most of us are in a league where we are trying to find our way forward as well. So I think that the competition is not with other universities, but with finding the proper ecosystem within the country, like in Singapore, NUS, NTU, we are always looking in ways where instead of competing, but collaborating to ensure that the best research is translated into the best possible commercial entity. The good thing is that in recent years, I've seen a paradigm shift on how the professors are thinking. In recent years, I'm hearing more that professors are saying there are only two kinds of research now. There's applied research and not yet applied research. So everybody is gearing to do research that is useful, that can be translated into some form of product and service in the future.
I can give you one example that I'm quite inspired by, and we're aiming for something similar at the University of Alberta, and that is Northern Gritstone, a venture capital fund that was funded in Northern England in a collaboration of 3 universities, Sheffield, Manchester, and Leeds, all working together, and they just closed a $300 million close on this investment fund, investing in innovations coming out of those 3 universities. So I know the president of Sheffield well, and I've been picking his brain about how they put this together, how this collaboration is working. I think this is really cutting edge, and you'll be seeing more of this from universities.
All right, before we wrap up here, maybe I'll give each of our panelists just one thought or takeaway from here that you can leave our audience with. Bill, we'll start with you.
Just that there's enormous opportunity for Canada in the region. I was just in Australia, and I was so impressed with the way Australians engage with Asia. And I was thinking there's so much we can learn from Australians. Now, the benefit of Australia is that they're a lot closer. So if I could wish for one thing, it would be more geographic proximity. That's not going to happen. But being here, being present, building those partnerships, building those relationships, of such importance. So delighted to be here. Thank you.
As the Air Canada guy, I would also like their weather. I think that would make things a little easier too. But
I put in a plug for you there.
Yeah, Arlene.
I've got 2.5 million miles on Air Canada, so I think I should have like a seat dedicated to me on a plane somewhere. I would highly suggest that we have a government right now that is opening up trade corridors for us, and is spending a lot of time and energy to ensure that there's agreements in place. Some of these agreements have been in place for many years, prior to what's happened in the geopolitical environment we're in today, but yet industry never walked through those doors. This is on us. This is on industry to make a difference and to do what's necessary to walk through the doors that are being opened and to collaborate with Singapore and other nations. It is on us for universities and entrepreneurs to work more effectively together and to walk through those doors together. And it is on us as Canadians to capitalize on the opportunity that's in front of us to ensure that we take what we know and can do to the world stage. So there is, what do they say, never waste a good crisis. We are in one, and we need to be pushing hard and aggressively, and that is very un-Canadian, but I think that is exactly what we need to do. And we will find partners, as we have when we spend time here in Singapore and with other nations who are interested in working with us, who trust us, and who value what we have to say and bring.
Thank you. Louis, final word?
Final word, yeah. I think international partnerships succeed when research, talent, and markets move together with shared intent. So I'm really excited about the collaborations we've embarked on between Singapore and Canada, and I hope to see more of it in the future.
Awesome. Thank you all. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. Thank you so much, everyone.
Salamat siang, bonjour. It's great. I love it when Jeff gets to show off his competencies in Bahasa Indonesia. I'm really thrilled to be with all of you here today for, I think, a very important announcement. I know it's a deal that has been worked on for some time, but it's the first investment by Canada's Development Finance Institution, FinDev Canada, in Indonesia since they established a presence here in Singapore last year. This first investment is with the Indonesia Infrastructure Finance, a leading company in Indonesia, and as a first partner in the country, I don't think they could have chosen a better one. IIF operates at the highest international standards, has high ESG requirements. They work in sustainable infrastructure, the energy transition, and of course, have very, very high standards of corporate governance. So as a first foray into the Indonesian market, they couldn't have picked a better partner. And of course, Pak Rizky and IIF is a very, very good friend of Canada and longstanding partner of the Embassy and of course, Export Development Canada. And I think this agreement, this investment is a really good symbol or good example of the important and growing partnership between Canada and Indonesia, because it really is a partnership. As many of you may know, last September, Canada and Indonesia signed a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, which when ratified this year will unlock trade and investment between our two countries. When you look at the priorities of the Indonesian government around energy security, food security, development of human capital, and economic development, Canada is a key and strategic partner in each of these areas through our commodities, through our people, and through our technologies. And as part of energy security, we have climate resilience and the energy transition. And I think this agreement, and with FIDEV's first foray into the Indonesian market, this will help Indonesia, and Indonesia is ground zero in the fight against climate change. The energy transition is very, very serious business there. And this agreement, I think, will really help drive the energy transition and will ensure that Indonesia continues to be a leader in the fight against climate change and the development of sustainable infrastructure. So, and of course, timing is everything. I know they've been working on this deal for some time, but the fact that they could conclude during the premier Canada event here in Asia, I think is great timing. So it's great that this agreement can be announced and celebrated today here in CIAC. So without further ado, I would like to welcome, or I would like to call up to stage a few individuals here. So if Paulo Martelli and Sadia Hassan from FinDev Canada could come to the stage, Pa Rizky and Ibu Mila from Indonesia Infrastructure Finance, as well as Scott Moore, if you could also come to the stage, the Chief Financial Officer of EDC and board member of FinDev Canada. And I'd also like to welcome Weldon Epp to the stage, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Indo-Pacific at Global Affairs Canada. Thank you very much, everyone. This is a great celebration of the partnership between Canada and Indonesia. Terima kasih banyak. Merci beaucoup.